Good morning, Mr. Patil. How you doing? It's been a long time. It's been a long time, right? Where have you been? How have you been? Is everything okay? I read your comments. I think you're getting busy in the mornings these days. Bum 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 bum, says Mr. Ankit Jindal. How are you doing, Mr. Jindal? What's up? Yes, my father was in hospital. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. How is he doing? Is everything okay? What happened to him? If you don't mind my asking. And my thoughts and prayers for the family. I hope he gets well soon, ASAP, right? And that you don't face any problem of that regard at all. I just hope, man. Health is just, is everything, I guess. I When you have a lot of problems, you have a lot of problems. But when you fall sick, you just have one problem. That's help. Now he's okay. Typhoid. Congratulations. Speedy recovery, says Mr. Jindal. Thanks. That's good. That's good. Best wishes to everybody watching. I guess you can hear me. That's why you've been able to respond. Now, if everything is okay, shall we begin? Because we are already a bit late. It's 8:10. I'm so sorry. I apologize. But, it takes time. So we should begin? Yes, says Mr. Jindal, which means I'm ready. So let us begin. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We are having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, but they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, you gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And here we go. My God. My God, it's beautiful. Let's do it again. Oh my God, sublime. It's healing. Some comments. Good morning, Bhaiya, says Archit. Good morning, Mr. Archit. Let's go, says Mr. Raju Kumar. Mr. Pratik Vesh says, I'll sip water. Good job on the simultaneous sip. Very good. So before we begin the episode, I'd like to remind you about what the simultaneous sip says, right? It says, you are not alone. It says that we are in this together, which is what the branded cup says. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank Mr. Raju Kumar. We really, got a real patron last night. Mr. Raju Kumar helped the indexing of the episodes. Mr. Bichandani's episode, Mr. Alok Sama's episode, Mr. Suhail Seth's episode. And thank you so much, Mr. Raju Kumar. I thank you so much for taking the effort, taking the time, but it's going to help everybody. And this could be growing as a community effort, this Thinker's Frequency thing, right? Thank you so much. So all thanks to Mr. Raju Kumar for indexing our episodes. And that's just great. I sincerely thank you. A lot of people will benefit because I get this a lot from people that, hey, could you index this? Could you index this? And you did it. Thank you so much. With that said, I yesterday wrote an article talking about, I yesterday wrote an article about quick commerce and the delivery riders' jobs not being jobs. I wrote why a job needs to have a certain characteristic, certain set of characteristics, and without those characteristics, a job isn't a job; it's a trap, right? Without a learning curve, an earning curve, a career path, it's not really a job. It's just basically a lure, a trap, which is getting people, and the only way up is out. Essentially, one of the comments wrote, and that's true. I believe in that statement. I believe in the analysis. I sincerely believe that a lot of careers, they can't pay as much as the delivery rider profession pays, the quick commerce delivery riding profession, which is what leads those people into delivery riding business, right? So they say that, hey, why do I have to study? Or why do I have to gain any skill? Or why do I have to get into an apprenticeship which doesn't pay and it's seriously hard work? Why do I all have to do all these hard jobs when I could just take a delivery riding job, right? Where I have to go from point A to point B, and the faster I go, the more I'll make, and that's what I'll be doing, right? So that kind of a lure, it's a very solid lure for a young guy who could be investing in his skills to do something worthwhile, which 4 years, 5 years later, 10 years later could actually result in a skill for him, right? Now, all those beautiful years of youth, right, of high energy, of high hopes, high ambitions, or let's say desperation to put food on the table, all those years of youth are taken away from those guys uh, in the form of these delivery riding jobs, right? And all that guy looks at is, hey, do you want to be a sales executive? You want to be a sales agent, feet on street sales guy for an FMCG company? You'll get to learn a lot. Do you want to work with Airtel, the telco company, as a feet and street guy? So all you have to do is just go everywhere, and you'll have to talk about Airtel's offerings. You're gonna develop communication skills. You're gonna develop, if you're working in retail, you're gonna develop inventory, management skills. You'll be developing some sort of analytical mind about the shelf space of Kirana stores, and so on and so on. And would you like to do all of those apprenticeship jobs? No. Why would I do that? I'll just take a delivery guy job. I'll make 28,000, 25,000 rupee a month. Yeah, after expenses, it'll be somewhere around 14, 15,000, but that's cool. You are giving me 14, 15,000, and it's hard work, man, right? And that's the play. Because if you're attracting so many people and you're basically luring them into something which is only going to pay less with time, it's a big deal. Now, I wrote that analysis, and viewers of Thinkers Frequency know we've talked about that a lot. We've really, discussed that in depth. So, a few comments I got in that particular play, and which I want to discuss with you, so that you don't make such poor arguments. Okay, some conversations display the quality of arguments. So when you're debating somebody, when you're talking to somebody, when you're literally thinking, what would be a good argument and what would be a bad argument is something that you should know, you should understand. Because if you are, let's say, educated from a very good institute, and then you come with an absolute dumb argument, right? And now I'll tell you what that argument is. What Imagine 10 people starting as amateur security guards in a company, but the head of security is just one position, right? Not all jobs have a progression curve. Now, this person is a very respected, and I respect him. I shouldn't name him, of course, but he's a very accomplished, successful startup founder, great person. And it's not just him. A lot of people had this argument uh, where a security guard, what about a security guard? So the insight here is, what about is not a good argument. What about security? What about that? What about that? That is not an argument. That is an absolutely dumb argument. That's a conversation ender. What does a what about say? What about is again an analogy thinking, right? What about says that, okay, I accept your argument, but what about that? Okay. Now, I don't have an answer to that question, and I don't want to answer that question because I didn't say that this particular job is the worst job in the world, or there are no other jobs which are as bad as or as good as this job, right? Or there are this is the only. What about says that you're essentially accepting that okay, you have a point, you this makes sense, but what about. So whenever you're arguing or whenever you're debating somebody, please avoid analogy thinking, uh, totally and forever, because whataboutery or analogy thinking doesn't make for a good, you know, it's just lazy thinking. It's bad thinking. It's just bad argument, bad debating, bad thinking. Now coming to why it's a bad thinking. So let's say I choose to respond to this particular argument, which brings a security guard profession, security profession. Okay. Now what I do is I basically let go of the existing argument which I'm making for why delivery jobs are a problem, because it's more of a national issue, right? First of all, security guards or security isn't uh, you know a burgeoning industry. It's not like it's growing everywhere tenfold, and it's not like people are wanting to quit their jobs to become security guards. It's not like it's paying a lot. It's not like people are actually quitting other avenues and joining the security play because it's putting food on the table, right? So it's a completely different context, and that's what happens with analogy thinking. You end up discussing completely different contexts, right? And now let's say if you're working at a security firm, even that particular firm has a career path, right? It has a career path. If you look at G4S security or APS securities and all of these people, you can rise up the ranks. The problem with this particular case is there is no rank, right? Now I'll tell you another problem. When people are talking about this issue, right, of we creating, let's say, Mr. Piyush Goyal also said that we are basically stretching our logistics, and we are exploiting young people into these jobs, cheap labor. We are basically making them work as delivery executives when they could be doing other things. When people start talking about that, some people say that you are disrespecting the middle class, okay? Because these people are the new middle class. Now, that's amongst the dumbest things that you can say, calling delivery executives the middle class. So, there's a lot of fugazi on what middle class actually means in the country, right? A lot of people have misconceptions. So, let me clear that out as well. What is middle class? What do you think is middle class? Who is middle class? What do you define? How do you define middle class in this country, right? So, let's take the entire GDP and the per capita play, right? India has a per capita of about $2,800. Let's say $3,000 is 27. Basically 2.5 lakh rupees. Okay, that is the per capita income of the country. Per capita income is total GDP divided by total number of people in the country, total population. Per capita income 2.5 lakhs, okay, per annum. Now that is obviously not middle, right? You can't do middle, because when you're dividing the entire GDP with the entire population of the country, you're also counting infants, you're also counting babies, you're also counting people above 60, very old people. So you'll have to, in order to actually reach the middle, the practical middle of the country, you'll have to divide the total GDP of the country with the total working population. Okay, how many people can work? Working age population. Working age population means 18 to 60, right? So you'll have to take out the below 18 people and above 60 people, right? So you get that India has about 67% of working age people, 18 to 60. So you essentially arrive at a per capita of 3.5-4 lakhs, right? When you divide the entire GDP with the 67-65% of the total population, that's what you get. Okay, from 2.5 it goes up to 3.5. Now the thing is, a 3.5 lakh salary means something else when it comes to Delhi, and it means something else when it comes to Araria, Katihar, Purnia, Muzaffarpur, Begusarai, right? Because the per capita income of the country essentially falls down by a cliff when you just move out 600 kilometers away from the metropolitans, right? The top metropolitans. So what you have to do is you have to judge not the country's per capita income. You get the baseline, the 3.5 lakh working age population. You got to go to a state. So let's say you go to Delhi. Okay. Now, when you go to Delhi, you see Delhi's gross state GDP, GSDP, which is called. Okay. Now, then you divide it by the working population of Delhi. So Delhi has some $120 billion of GDP, right? And then you divide it by the working population of Delhi, you'll get something around 5.5 lakhs or something. Okay. Now 5.5 lakh is the per capita of the working age population of Delhi. Understood? Now that is where Delhi stands. However, there's another catch. And what is that catch? Can you guess where we are going with this? Right? I think you can guess, right? So where are we going with this? So this is very important. I hope you're following, right? Total GDP divided by total number of people is per capita income. But you've got to divide it by the total number of working class people, working age people, right? And the working age people, you essentially divide it, you get something like a 3.5 to 4.5 lakh rupee per annum. But when you go to Delhi, and you divide it by the working age people, you essentially get like something like a 10 lakh rupee. So I've done this analysis. You get something like a 9.5 lakh rupee as what comes out. So dividing GSDP of Delhi, $120 billion, by total working age population of Delhi, that is 11 million people, we get $11,000 or 9.55 lakh rupee per annum. Okay. Therefore, to be right in the middle as far as the earning capacity of Delhi is considered, you'll have to make 9.55 lakh rupee per annum. So that is middle class, okay, of Delhi. And how does it relate with the country's GDP? Country's per capita income. So let's say if you're a guy, okay, and you have a family of 4, all right? Now you make 10 lakh rupees in your household, okay? Now you have a partner who also makes some money. Let's say she makes 5 or 6 lakh rupees per annum. Understood? So in your family of 4, you are, let's say, not gender stereotyping here. Let's say the woman makes 10 lakhs and the guy makes 5 lakhs. Okay, 15 lakhs in a family of 4, essentially 3.5 lakh rupees per person, right? Per person, and that actually estimates lines up with the per capita income of the country, which is at 2.5 to 3.5 lakh rupees. Understood? So that is the middle class. Now, why did I talk about middle class so much? Is because these people, people with bad arguments, they've started calling delivery boys as middle class of the country. Now, at the same time, in the same breath, they also call themselves middle class when they are making like 50 lakh rupees an annum. Okay, so 50 lakh to a crore an annum. So in one breath, they call these people who make barely 25,000, 15,000 a buck, so basically 2 lakh rupee an annum. They call these people middle class, and they call themselves as middle class. So talk about lacking self-awareness. It's just extraordinary. And this is not how you are talking. Because if you call these people middle class, and you call yourself middle class as well, you're essentially disrespecting their struggle, right? Now, these people are barely making ends meet, man. They are going through dire straits. They're working day in and day out, driving that motorcycle for 12 hours, 15 hours a day to basically make something like a 15,000 rupee month per month. And you're calling them middle class because somehow it makes you feel good. I don't know. For what? So you cannot be disrespecting these people's struggle by terming them middle class, because it makes you think that it'll give them the respectability you want to bestow on them, right? Just this is the real situation. I hope, I'm sorry I took some time. How much time did I take for this? About 15 minutes. But it was necessary, very necessary. First of all, middle class, the definition of middle class is pretty vague, and this particular analysis should help. And secondly, don't call a poor guy middle class, man, just because he's wearing a t-shirt and he's coming to you with a bag, right? And why and then call yourself middle class as well, right? It's just unbelievable. Anyway, so 2 points: no analogy thinking while arguing or debating. No, what about? No, what about? That's poor thinking. And then respect for the real poor people, or let's say, people who are in dire straits for putting food on the table. Moving on, a new window for FPIs may make it a breeze in the business. So the government is obviously, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know this. We've talked about this enough. That the government is trying to court these people, FPI guys, right? Because we are literally draining a lot of money. FPIs are going out. FPIs are the net sellers in the country for right now, for quite a few months, right? So FPI is basically going away from the country. They're profiting, they're booking profits, and very little inflow is happening as far as the Indian markets are considered for significant duration of time, right? Now, what the government tried to do in that regard is that it cut down the minimum investment limit, right, in large value funds. Earlier it was 80 crores, then they brought it down to 25 crores, which was very necessary. And then they also want to have like a diplomatic passport made for these guys for easier access to the country. And then there's something called a single window, could use automatic window for them at its board meeting this week. So these people are trying to essentially lure FPIs into the country, because while Indian retail market, when I say retail market, I mean the capital market, the stock market, it's pretty solid, because the Indian retail investors are very, very bullish, and they're parking a lot of their deposits into the stock market. So while the market is standing, it needs to have some sort of international participation as well. That signals strength of an economy, that signals strength of a capital market, which is currently not happening, right? FPIs keep selling in the second half of August. Financial services continue to bear the brunt of foreign selling, with overseas investors offloading 10,000 crores of shares in the second half, after dumping 13,000 earlier in the month. So that's a lot of money exiting the market. But of course, things happen, and we've talked about everything that the government is trying to do, right, to essentially bring these people in the fray. One of those things was getting insurers into the play, right? Full 100% FDI for insurers, and so on and so on. Another move that the government did was enabling Indian family offices, Indian businesses to register in the gift city, right? Use the regulatory arbitrage and then invest in the Indian markets through FPI. So basically get Indian money to a gift city, give them some sort of regulatory SOPs, and then so that they can invest as FPIs, right? So some of those moves have been working out, and I hope I'm not missing out anything. Yeah, we've talked about this. I don't know if it's only me, everyone in between live session is going off. No, this particular place says excellent connection. Says Mr. Patil says the live session is going off in the middle. I hope nobody else is facing that problem. Sincerely. So moving on, let me know in the comments if you are. Overseas application for non-immigration visas barred by US. So you know what? During COVID, US had come out with an international a visa provision, where an Indian could be in Dubai, or could be in Vietnam or Thailand or wherever, and from there they could apply visa so that they get something better, right? That was a strategy which a lot of agents uh, took to, and all of these people who go to the US are mostly affluent people, right? So they had an option to actually be there, and for that you only had to be in that country for a week or 10 days or something of that sort, and then you have some sort of biometrics and everything, and then you can apply for visa from that location, from that country, right? Now US has banned that. US says COVID is done. Now we're going to accept Indian visas coming from India only, right? Because what US is trying to do is trying to limit people for the visa programs, and it's gonna essentially, even if not, it's not limiting, it wants to scrutinize this, right? And this is a way Indians found during COVID, uh, which basically sidestepped that scrutiny. Now that way is off. So US is trying its best to essentially curtail these visas, and it's one step in that direction. Falling net interest income hurts private banks' profit growth. Public sector peers good. This is actually an old news. News. It's an old news. A second consecutive quarter, April to June. So these people, this is what, September, April, June, July, August have already passed. So these people are basically analyzing a June report of the profit profile of private banks and public sector banks, and they said that due to the net interest margins, we've talked about net interest margins a lot. Banks sort of had a net interest income fall, right? Net interest income fall hurt their profitability profile, but now it should be better in the coming quarters. Why? Because the rates have come down and the deposit rates are also coming down, and also the deposit rates are going to come down because the CRR has come down. So earlier it was 4%, now it's 3%. What that means is that the banks need to have 1% less money blocked as the CRR ratio to maintain the particular metric, right? So it's gonna free up a lot of capital, and then they can bring the deposit FD rate down, so they don't have to, they basically, their dependence on it falls, right? So it's gonna get better. I don't know why these people published a June report, but it's something that we discussed, and this is why it's very important to actually follow something like this, because let's say you come out of the blue and out of 3 months you read something like this and you're like, whoa, the banking is in trouble, right? You sell your bank stocks, and then you find out, oh, no, this was like a quarter ago. The banking is actually going to do well for the next 2 quarters, and then you see all those stocks climbing up, and then you cry, which is not a good thing, right? So moving on, India is talking about Mehul Cheksi's extradition with Belgium. That's okay. Some geopolitics. Trump indicates readiness for phase 2 of Russia sanctions, and he didn't say what he can do, but what he'll do. But he says, yeah, it's gonna be. So this is another lesson for everybody, that you should never start wars you can't stop, or wars you can't win, right? So the Russian war, essentially war against Russia with Ukraine as a proxy by the Democrat administration in 2020, was a very, very bad idea, right? Very bad idea. And they continued, they doubled down on that war. They threw out Russia from the SWIFT system. They sanctioned Russia. They took a war against Russia for no reason. And, everything hurt everybody. And now they can't stop it, because what more sanctions can you apply on Russia? Right? You're out of sanctions. You're out of options. Now, all the leverage rests with Russia. And all you'll do is essentially just keep supplying weapons to Ukraine, right? And Europe is gonna have to pay for it, because US is not even giving money to Ukraine anymore. They ended up giving like 150 billion, but then came Trump and no more money, right? So it all rests on Russia. And you know what? The incentive for Russia to stop the war is pretty limited. Now, why do you think incentive for Russia to end the war without getting what it wants is pretty limited? It's pretty limited because This is practice for the Russian defense industry, because right now the war between Russia and Ukraine is an all drone war. It's an all drone war. You know that? You know something? We've talked about this enough. We've talked about how drones are everything, right? Drones are everything. Drones are nuclear technology without a limiting factor. We've talked about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that once you've made a nuclear bomb, right, it blows, right? You don't have to make a 20x, 20% or 30% or 50% or 100% better nuclear bomb. A nuclear bomb is a nuclear bomb. So there's a limiting factor to that, right? How high can you can go with a nuclear bomb? But with a drone, you can just keep getting better. The drone technology will keep getting better. It'll keep getting smarter. It'll keep getting more effective, more efficient. And with drone, you know, the technology, the entire technology paradigm just keeps getting better, right? And this particular playground right now for Russia is a means for it to essentially develop its drone tech, right? And it's in the war arena. Why would it stop before it gets everything it wants, right? uh, Moving on, India plans to put large infra projects in fast lane. Uh, Now we've been talking about this, that increased public spending on capex, stage set till 2030s for large projects, fresh look, and so on and so forth. So 11.2 lakh crore allotted for infra spend in FY26. We talked about this. In 2015, our infra spend was 2 lakh crore, and in FY26, our infra spend is 11.2 lakh crore. Like that's almost a 6x, 5x, 5.5x growth, you know, in 10 years. So it's extraordinary. And they're talking about Vikasit Bharat 2047. And they're also talking about now the next stage of reforms. What can you do next? You've already done the personal income tax reform. You've already done the GST reform. What can you do next? And they're saying the next is, the regulation and the land regulation bit. So right now it's very, very difficult for you to actually set up a factory, and if it gets litigated, you're screwed, and you get a lot of notices and so on and so forth, right? So what they're saying is the next thing is take the lower hanging fruits as far as deregulating that particular bit is considered, the land bit, right? Now we've talked about this enough, we've defined this enough, and we've discussed this enough. We've said that how regulation is a very big problem. The reg tech thing, it takes there's these people's report says that it takes 1455 days for a contract to get enforced through judiciary. And that's totally right. That's totally right. So if your contract gets screwed over by the other party, and you go to the court, the only way you'll be able to get money is by settlement of it, and that settlement would only happen in your favor if the amount is not too high. So you understand what I'm saying? So I have litigated a lot because when I was building the testament, I used to deal with a lot of businesses, and some of those businesses actually used to block our payments, right? Because India works like that. So they block payments. The companies just block payments of small companies and startups. They just don't pay. So they say that we're gonna pay, and then you keep calling and you keep calling and you keep calling, and then they just don't pay. And one day they say, hey, we're not paying, go screw yourself, right? So I went to court, and let's say my amount was a few lakhs, so not big. This happened 2 or 3 times with me, and I wouldn't take it lying down, man. I would go to the court. I didn't become an entrepreneur so some asshole can screw me over, my payment, my money, and something that I've done, and he is supposed to pay. So I went to the court, and one court, so the process is with the courts that you give a notice, right? A legal notice. A person can choose to not respond. Then you give another notice. The person can choose to not respond. Then you go to the court, register a case, and then you give a summon, right? Then the person can choose to ignore the first summon. Then the second summon. The third summon, if he doesn't respond to it, then the matter goes like it's ex parte, right? The judge can decide that, hey, this guy didn't show up, and it can give the reading. Then the guy turns up, right? Now what the guy does is, in that case, the other party says that this particular jurisdiction is not valid for this case. This case should be argued in some other court. It's a delaying tactic. What they want to do is just delay, right? So he comes and says, this is not the right jurisdiction for this particular case, right? And then you're like, but it is. So you argue on that particular bit. You tell the judge that this is indeed the right jurisdiction. Now the judge decides that this particular jurisdiction is the case. Now that particular guy then says, I need another date, tariq pe tariq, and so on and so forth. Now then you come to the matters of the case, right? Then you start have a discussion on the evidence. So all the evidence is submitted. Then there's some paper filing, some sort of legal, BS which delays something. This goes on for years, right? And you have dates, and sometimes the court gives you like a month later date or 2 months later. Sometimes it gives like a 6 months later date, right? So you come to the court 6 months later. But I, in every case, got 3x the money that these people owed me, the assholes, right? So whatever they stole from me, I got 3x the money. You know why? Because I come from a family of lawyers, right? We can go to the court, no problem. And we have like a Dwarka court here. So we go here. And those people have to hire a lawyer and get that lawyer to argue on their behalf, right? And for what? For a couple of lakhs, for 3 lakhs, right? Now, every hearing, they have to pay to that lawyer, okay? Every hearing costs them something. It costs us nothing. Maybe some peace of mind, but that's okay, right? And then, after 6 or 7 hearings, 10 hearings, they figure out, oh shit, we ended up paying a lot of money to this lawyer. Lawyers make money. That's what I said, right? Oh, we ended up paying a lot of money to this guy. For what? Let's just settle with this guy. And then they're like, hey, Nishant, why did you go to court? You could have talked to me. And I'm like, shut up, you. I want to use an F word. Can I use an F word? It's been 106 episodes. Please give me a quick cheer on if I can use an F word quickly, right? So he says, oh, Nishant, he starts talking politely. Why didn't you come to me, and so on and so forth. Yes, Mr. Pratik Vash says yes. And since nobody is saying no, you still have time to veto everybody if you want to. And I'll then drop a very nice F word, which this moment deserves. But yes, if YouTube agrees, let's go with it. So I'm like, shut the fuck up, you motherfucker, right? Now you're waking up after 2 years, when you stole my money, when you refused to pay. Now you're suddenly talking to me. You run a company of 450 crores and you blocked like 3 lakh rupees of mine for no reason, just because you could. You fucking asshole, right? And then that guy essentially pays you. And all this time, sometimes it takes 1 year when the other person realizes that, this guy is not going to back down. And sometimes it takes 3 years or 2 years or whatever, right? So it's very hard to enforce contracts in the country. And that's what the government tried doing. So what it did was 2 years ago, it brought, a particular regulation where if you are registered as an MSME and if a company blocks your money, okay, if the company blocks your money, that particular money, you will not be able to show that in the payables. You won't be able to show that as far as your paid is considered. It'll hang in your sheet as the account payables. So you won't be able to get the tax benefit out of it. You understand what I'm saying? So let's say if you were supposed to pay me 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs or whatever, you didn't pay, but on the book you've marked it, right? So on the book, if you've marked it and you've not cleared the payment, you can still get the tax exemption, right? Because that 3 lakh goes out of your income statement. You understand? But the government said, no, you can't. So if the payment isn't cleared, and so on and so on. So the government tried to bring a lot of such things to ease of doing business. But there's a long way to go. I'm sorry for the efforts, but I really hate the people who block people's money, right? Uh, People who actually steal people's money. Like, there's a hardworking entrepreneur who's doing everything he can. He's fighting all ends. He's doing so well, and you know, then you just block somebody's money. And the thing they say, that adjust it in the next contract. So they want the next contract free. So right now they owe you 5 lakhs. They'll have another 5 lakhs uh, uh, worth contract, and then they'll block that payment as well. And then you'll keep begging for your money to these guys, right? Mr. Tiwari says, shit, even after marking on the books, they were not paying. So earlier, yeah. So they marked the book and they didn't pay, right? So that's the play. Approval for ISM 2.0 fast track. We've talked about ISM. ISM is India Semiconductor Mission. ISM 1 took like 1.5. How much did it take? 1.5 lakh crores, 1.7 lakh crores, some $18 billion, right? And ISM 2, they wanted to be double. So they're really doubling down on the whole semiconductor play. And it's leading to a lot of cascading effects, all of which are very huge, very huge. So you know what happened? Hyundai essentially uh, had set up a factory in US, and that factory was supposed to hire Americans, and that's Trump's agenda, right? He wants people to hire Americans, so make in America and hire Americans, right? So what these Koreans did was they went to Georgia, they set up the plant, and it turned out that they were not hiring Americans, right? ICE agents, ICE is immigration control, whatever their body, which judges all of this. They try to track all the illegal immigration. They found out that these people are not hiring Americans, so everybody thought that they must be hiring, let's say, Mexicans or all of these immigrants, right? All of these illegal, some of them illegal immigrants. They had like 450 people, but they later found out. It actually hurts my stomach. So they later found out that Koreans, they set up this factory, and they had Koreans working in that factory. So that set up a factory in US, brought 300 Koreans from Korea, and they were working. So essentially, they followed the law. They set up a factory, but they didn't hire Americans, right? So now those people are being deported. Very, very interesting. Moving on. Now this makes you think, if Koreans can do this, can you even trust anything that comes out of Korea, right? It's pretty interesting, man. Speaking of trust and the whole situation of GST 2.0, the government was against anti-profiteering, and FMCG companies were talking about being able to sell the earlier packs, because if let's say you the earlier inventory, you've got to repackage it, it costs money, right? And you lose money on repackaging. You can't change the MRP, right? You can't do that. You can't even change the packaging. You can't even anti-shrinkflate. So what the government, what these people are asking is old price labels, with better prices. So we could advise the trade to actually sell it at a discount, but please let us sell the old inventory with those same price labels. And then the next ones will obviously have the GST 2.0 play. So packaging punch, 2,000 crore rupee packaging cost may go to waste if not used. MRP disclosures, QR codes, and so on and so forth. Exhaust existing packaging is their request. Moving on. A lot of political chit chat which we best not discuss. I'm so sorry for using the F word, but if there's one thing I wouldn't like to hold my abuses, it's for people who block other people's money, right? Those people, they deserve all the abuses. Moving on. Dairy and meat companies gain muscle in times of protein diets. Protein diets are rising in the country. Even in packaged foods, big food companies struggle to revive volumes as consumer focus shifts to nutritious products. And comes the a very big part of the story, anti-obesity drugs. Now we talked about yesterday, we said the cascading effects of things. Uh, have we, Mr. Aman Killa asks, hey, have we discussed the Ola Electric audit discrepancy in the previous episodes? Yes, we have. We have. We were talking about the anti-obesity drugs, right? An industry which is going to grow 10x in the next 2 years itself. It's selling 1 lakh units right now. It's going to sell 12 lakh units in the next 2 years itself. Earlier, their estimate was 10 lakh, but now it's grown to 12 lakh. So imagine the growth rate. It's not 10x, it's 12x. So that industry grows. When that industry grows, it takes a lot of money from the food industry away, right? Because those people, they were the power customers of all the products, and they go out of the window. This is one of the things that happens, right? Every story is to be judged in terms of its cascading effects. Moving on. Monsoon showers push e-commerce orders up. Partner payouts on account of rain. Consumers essentially stuck in their homes using e-commerce to order things. No surprise there. Companies reset sustainability goals amid extreme weather surge. Well, no surprise there as well. Hyundai cars to be cheaper by 2.5 lakh rupees. Come on, man. It's huge. It's a steal, right? Cars getting so cheap. It's just extraordinary. There's a big ad from Mahindra, right? We discussed this in a couple of episodes ago, where we said that all of these companies are really trying to move their stock even before the GST works. Why? Because they want the cess to get balanced, right? They have like 6 lakh cars in the inventory, and they want them to, because they've already paid like 2,500 crores cess or something of that sort in that order, right? They need that money to move, right? So huge Mahindra ad says, everyone said 22nd September, we said now. Avail GST benefits starting 6 September, get up to 1.5 lakh rupee off. So it's crazy, and whatever is happening, it should lead to great consumption. If it leads to great consumption, the country will be very lucky. Moving on. Japan's PM has resigned, PM Ishiba. We talked about this. We said this, many episodes ago when this was first happening. He essentially lost majority, and his party essentially was talking about him going out. They wanted to him to go out because, no legal way to stay on the chair. And he said, like an honorable Japanese, that I'll resign as soon as the Trump deal is done, like the US tariff thing is done. And that happened. And that deal didn't really pan out as well, right? Japan got a very rough deal. $550 billion they had to invest in US, and their 15% tariff they got from US. So it wasn't really taken very positively. So he is now resigned. Now his resignation is going to lead to some movement in the Japanese markets. Where those movements go, will need a very deep discussion. Right? Moving on. Lula says Brazil won't allow foreign governments to interfere. Lula, Mr. Lula, is the Prime Minister of Brazil. Now, you know the context. We've discussed this. Earlier Prime Minister of Brazil, or was it President? One second. President, sorry. Brazil has presidents, not prime ministers. There was Bolsonaro. He was a right-wing person, Mr. Bolsonaro. And obviously, Mr. Trump favored Mr. Bolsonaro. And Bolsonaro got out and he lost the election. Some say that election was rigged. Now, when he lost the election, these people started loading him up with a lot of lawsuits. That seemed like illegal lawfare. And Mr. Trump said that if you continue this, I'm going to sanction you. And he's actually sanctioned Brazil, right? Which has led to coffee price rise in US. Interesting ways how market works. So Mr. Lula says, we won't let any government interfere with our internal politics or internal law and order, let's say. Moving on. Russia's biggest drone barrage hits Kyiv, kills 4. Well, we've talked about it. Unfortunately. Rest in peace, everybody. Moving on. Mr. Sandeep Goyal is an ad man from India. He's looking at buying Dentsu's non-Japanese ad biz. Dentsu is the Japanese ad major. Now, Dentsu has its business aligned in 10 different companies. right? In Japan, outside Japan. Now, those companies, Mr. Siddharth Rao, who I interviewed, the writer of How I Almost Blew It, great book, his company was Web Chutney, and that was acquired by Dentsu. So it became Dentsu Web Chutney, right? So if you look at Dentsu, Dentsu Global Business is organized into 10 main divisions: Carrot, Dentsu, Dentsu Media, McGarry Moven, Merkle, Porterscope, Isobar, Soap Creative, iProspect, and Vism, amongst other. Dentsu Aegis Network manages all the things. Now Dentsu might be looking at offloading its international business. Uh, Moving on, ad agency business has become very hard in this day and age, right? Very, very hard. Moving on. Kirana's distributors turn lean as countdown to September 22 begins. They're saying that we don't need more inventory. We're gonna manage the inventory we have, and then we're gonna the supply cycle has reduced, right? Because of the whole supply chain growth, or let's say supply chain flux. The cycles have become more efficient, so you can now have stuff quicker. So instead of loading a lot of inventory, what you can do is replenish that particular supply later, which is what players not willing to accept large supplies, leading to FMCG companies reducing supply cycles. Well, that's okay. Analysts say revised SAP would ignite demand, seamless transition in crucial to ensure all benefits reaching consumers. Supply cycles being reduced for personal care products from 7 to 10 days to 1 to 2 days. We've discussed this. Moving on. Luxury sees double-digit uptick as shoppers get more to spend. Even though luxury didn't get any GST revision, did it? Luxury retailers or brands are expecting a double-digit uptick in sales, backed by a longer wedding season and a launch of more India-specific collections. Retailers said the GST rate cuts should also help. Oh, so luxury segment also saw a GST rate cut? I wasn't aware of that, but it did. Maybe I missed it. Moving on. Quick commerce to hike festive workforce by 60%. Total quick commerce right now is at 10% of the total e-commerce play, 14% effectively, and it's gonna grow. So the share of quick commerce is just gonna grow, which means it's either bad news for Flipkart and Amazon, and then which means that it will be bad news for everybody involved in the quick commerce play right now. Moving on. Speaking of quick commerce, Big Basket is not being able to raise money. You know that? Unfortunate but true. Nifty may struggle with volatility. Well, no surprise there. It's obviously very volatile right now because now a new particular play has come into the equation, which is what happens to the whole tariff situation. Are we supposed to look at it positively? Or if Trump says there's going to be more tariffs on Russia, is it going to hurt companies in India which are related to Russia, which do business with Russia? So all of those things bring some sort of geopolitical instability, which of course leads to instability in the markets. Speaking of the markets, LG is renewing its efforts to go IPO, 15,000 crore listing, October. Korean electronics giant to sell 15%, and so on. It had an IPO bid earlier, and it's going again, and which is, I mean, it has been trying to go IPO. It has been taking a look at that, but now it's gonna be easier because you know what, the government, we've discussed this. The government essentially, or was it the government or the market regulators? Anyway, the regulators, they allowed big companies to IPO by decreasing their float size, right? Which leads to benefits for companies like Jio, the mega companies. Moving on. Foreign investors take more money out, make smaller select buys. We've talked about that. Banks sense an opportunity in GST gain for retail. MSME, we've talked about that. The banking sector, the finance sector, the consumption, manufacturing sector, everything depends on this particular festive season, and the entire country's outlook essentially depends on this particular festive season, right? So whatever happens in the next 3 months, September, October, November, December, January, actually next 6 months, yeah, 5 or 6 months, it's gonna decide everything as far as this country's economic prospects are considered, right? If everything that the government has done still doesn't lead to more consumption, it means something is radically wrong, right? With everything. Moving on, we've talked about that. Let me think I'm not missing anything. Uh huh. Okay. Land and labor reforms. Experts also, we've talked about that as well. I hope I'm not missing anything. Target is to take all reforms to the ground level for greater impact. Focus on ease of living and ease of doing business. Work already underway on decriminalization, disinvestment, and others. Government looking at dozen more next generation reforms. We've talked a lot about this, so I guess a good news in the railways. Vande Bharat sleeper may debut from Delhi. 1,000 kilometer route from Delhi may include Ahmedabad, Bhopal, and Patna. So there's a lot of talk about how Indian Railways has improved. I have very, very bad experiences. But Vande Bharat is one of the flagship projects of this country. Until now, it's been running as a, what is it called? The chair car play, right? Short distances chair car. Now the sleeper play comes. People say, experts say that sleepers are hard to maintain as far as quality is considered, because as long routes happen, the dirt filth starts accumulating and it starts compounding. So let's see how Vande Bharat's project goes on. It has maximum speed of 180 kilometers, which is pretty amazing for India. Some sleeper speed at some 160 kilometers. Practical speed, right? Maximum speed is 180, and a lot of thing is going on. Maharashtra's Bidkin is attracting 76,000 crores in investment as an SEZ of sorts. Bidkin industrial area in Maharashtra has attracted marquee investments by companies like Ather, Lubrizol, Toyota Kirloskar, JSW, and so on and so forth. The area has the potential to generate 35,000 jobs, right? It's a smart city kind of a play. 6 years of Oryx Smart City. We need a lot of such private capex coming to India. Moving on. We always talk about how lawyers make money, right? That India is a litigating country and we have a lot of litigations going all the time and it's a bit of a problem and so on and so on and so on. There's a news in that direction right now. What that news says is general counsels step up as strategic leaders in India incorporation. So lawyers, counsels are now getting hired or as promoted, let's say, as COOs, even CEOs of India Incorporate. They say that these lawyers have a lot of a serious strategic bent of mind, and since governance and since in technology, in real estate, and in a lot of places, since legal fight is a big part of the story, people have essentially started considering these the lawyers for C-suite positions. Well, lawyers make money. Legal leaders in India are moving from risk managers to business strategists, taking on COO and CEO roles, right? Insolvency and bankruptcy code, regulatory compliance norms, greater scrutiny by SEBI and tax authorities. So, notable moves. Jolly Abram, MD and CEO of True North. True North is a private equity company in India. Mr. Sanjeev Gemawat, after Mr. Jolly Abram, Sanjeev Gemawat has become MD of SR Group, and so on and so on, right? So a lot of companies are hiring lawyers as the C-suits. So lawyers, after they take some sort of MBA training, or if they, let's say, get trained in finance, they become very valuable, right? Because then they can structure deals, because every deal needs a lawyer, and every deal needs a finance guy. And if a finance guy is also a lawyer, or let's say if a lawyer is also a finance guy, he becomes generally a very good deal. So we've talked about how lawyers are very important for deals, right? And we talked in depth about a deal which ruined future retail. You remember that? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, do you remember the future retail Amazon deal which got ruined because of a bad clause? So quick summary. Future retail was getting acquired by Reliance. But Future Retail had a company called Future Coupons, which had raised some money from Amazon for a 50% or 49% stake. In that agreement, Amazon had gotten a right to refuse investment or mergers of the larger Future group in general. So, not just Future Coupons, but the Future Retail and other companies. Now, when Future Retail sold itself to Reliance, this particular clause was invoked. Now, the people in Future Retail woke up and they said, this can't be liable, right? Future Coupons is a 2000 crore company, and it's a 2000 crore investment, 4000 crore company. Future Retail is like a $3.4 billion company. It should be allowed to sell, but it couldn't sell, right? And then Future Retail just died, unfortunately. Moving on, lab grown diamonds are robbing Botswana of its diamonds riches. We've talked about the falling diamond industry. India is obviously struggling because diamond exports are tariffed. But even before the tariff, diamonds were going down. The gem and jewelry industry was going down. Why? Because lab grown diamonds, the artificial diamonds are taking space. And that is a big worry for the real diamond play. And India is just a polisher. Surat has 90% of all world's diamonds polishing. It happens here. But these blood diamond countries, these African countries, they come out with those diamonds, right? Sierra Leone and Botswana and so on and so on. South Africa. So those countries are really reeling under pressure. Botswana is saying that we are learning it the hard way to depend on just one commodity. Our country is facing an existential threat, says Botswana's leader. Which is very sad, but it is what it is. If you want to watch a good movie related to diamonds, there's a movie called Blood Diamond. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Connelly. Great movie. Extraordinary movie. Maybe his best movie ever. No. Departed or Blood Diamond. There could be a tie. Or maybe The Aviator. But yeah. Or Wolf of Wall Street is also pretty good. But yes. Blood Diamonds is right up there. Right? Moving on. Government to fast track semiconductor mission. We've talked about that. Proactive pitch. New sales driver for Indian companies. Earlier, the Indian companies used to have the RFP system. Well, it always exists, obviously, even now. But now, to speed up the deal process for the incumbents, they're like moving to proactive, deal sourcing. So instead of RFPs and the long drawn process, they're essentially trying to, but they're not getting any pricing power. So proactive pitching, new sales driver for Indian companies. Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar says, Revenant. Well, I didn't like Revenant, to be honest. Now, if you watch Aviator, if you watch Blood Diamond, if you watch The Departed, Departed is probably his best movie of all time. Then you watch Wolf of Wall Street, again Scorsese, Sir, and a lot of great movies. So Revenant didn't stand for me in that list. Catch Me If You Can. You're right, Mr. Vesh. Steven Spielberg, extraordinary movie. Christopher Walken. Physics Wala is filing an updated IPO for 3,800 crores. Founders are going to dilute some 360 crores each. Alak Pandey and Mr. Prateek Maheshwari and Mr. Alak Pandey are going to be diluting 360 crore. So they're going to give 360 crore rupee cash. 5 lakh camera deal. Indian Semiconductor Consortium bags a deal for 5 lakh indigenous cameras. AI transformed call center industry, but humans touch still irreplaceable. But to soften the blow, well, it doesn't help. And with that, we've covered all the happenings as far as the business and finance and economics world is considered for now. And with that, we come to the end of the 106th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:12. We're going to punch in anytime. I hope you liked it. I hope you had fun. I hope it added value to you. It was definitely a lot of fun for me. So Mr. Patil, Mr. Jindal, I need to thank Mr. Patil, Mr. Jindal, Mr. Archit, Mr. Prateek, Vesh, Mr. Raju Kumar for the subtitles. Indexing especially, and for also joining. Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Bhandekar, and everybody else who joined. I hope you have a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Hopefully. Take care. Bye-bye.